Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Here we have Anandini and Damayanti. Erin is here. Welcome, Erin. And Drew and Casey from Miami. George from Tallahassee. In Tallahassee. And Kelly's in Badenhall. And here we have Pampa and Diogovinda and somebody named Devon. And today we are starting the third canto. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaste Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances and to the personality of Godhead Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto the author Srila Vyasadeva. And today we are starting to read from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam entitled The Status Quo. And we are reading chapter 1 entitled Question by Vidura. And I'm going to read one word at a time in Sanskrit.
What text?
Text 1. We are starting.
Text one.
3-1-1. We are starting the third canto. Yeah, we just Pampa finished reading from the second canto last weekend.
Nice.
And then Thursday we had class, and Diogovinda Prabhu read from the preface of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the importance of reading Bhagavatam and the effect of reading Bhagavatam, and what is Bhagavatam. And Bhagavatam is not a book. Bhagavatam is it's revealed knowledge, transcendental knowledge that goes directly into our heart, that manifests the chitt potency, the knowledge potency that's inside every one of us. And also Bhagavatam is shelter and transformational. So now we're starting the third canto, the status quo, and question by Vidura. One word of Sanskrit at a time. Shri Shuka Uvacha, of course that's three.
Shri Uvacha.
Evam. Etat. No. Yeah. Pura. Krishna. Maitreya. Bhagavan. Kila. Kshatra. Vanam. Pravistena. Tyatva. Swagriyam. Ridimat. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam etat pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Tyaktva swagriyam vidimat.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Evam etam pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Tyaktva swagriyam vidimat.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Tyaktva swagriyam vidimat.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat.
Shri Shuka
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Satyavanam pravistena.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Tattva svagriham vidimat.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat. Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Tyaktva svagraham vidimat.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat.
Someone online would like to chant the verse?
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Travanam pravistena.
Travanam pravistena.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat.
Tattva svagriham vidimat.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Evam etat pura pristo.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila.
Kshatravanam pravistena.
Chatravanam pravistena.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat.
Tyaktva svagriham vidimat. Anybody else? Okay. Can do word for word translation. Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Shuka uvacha.
Shri Sukadev Goswami said.
Shri Shukadev Goswami said.
Evam thus. Etat
Etat
vis
vis.
pura
Pura.
formerly.
Formerly.
Krista,
Krishna,
being asked,
being asked,
Maitreya, the
Maitreya,
great sage Maitreya,
great sage Maitreya,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
His grace,
His grace,
Kila,
Kila,
certainly,
certainly,
Shatra,
Satra,
Vaidura,
Vaidura,
Vanam,
Vanam,
forest,
forest,
Pavishtena,
Kavishena,
entering,
entering,
Tyaktva,
Tatva,
renouncing,
renouncing,
Swagriam, sorry,
Swagriham,
own house,
own house,
Vidimat,
Vidimat,
prosperous.
prosperous.
Translation by His Divine Grace, C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Sukadev Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of His Grace Maitreya Rishi. Because there is no purport, I'm going to go to text 2. Yadva ayam matra kridvo bhagavam akileshvaraha Puravendra viham idva praviveshat masakritam. We can do one word at a time. Yat,
Yat,
the house.
the house,
Vai,
Vai,
what else is there to say?
what else is there to say?
I am
I am
Sri Krishna,
Sri Krishna,
Mantrakrit,
Mantrakrit,
Minister,
Minister,
Va,
Va,
you people,
You people,
Bhagavan, the
Bhagavan,
personality of Godhead,
personality of Godhead,
Akila Ishwara,
Akila Ishvara,
the Lord of
the
everything,
Lord of everything,
Pauravendra,
Ravindra,
Duryodhan,
Duryodhan,
Griyam,
Griyam,
House,
House,
Hitva,
Hidva,
giving up,
giving up,
Pravivesha,
Pravivesha,
interred,
entered,
Atmasat,
Atmasat,
identified with oneself,
identify with oneself,
Kritam,
Kritam,
so accepted.
so accepted.
Translation. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not have any care of Duryodhan's home. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. According to the Gaudiya Achintya Beda Beda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, is also Sri Krishna. For example, where am I?
Sri Vrindavan.
For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna, Tadama Vrindavanam, because at Vrindavan, the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of his internal potency. Similarly, the house of the Pandavas was also the source of transcendental bliss for the Lord. It is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house of his own self with his own self. Thus, the house of the Pandava was as good as Vrindavan, and Vidura should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization, and therefore, Vidura took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya Rishi. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jala Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Kadamayam Datati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shigu Shiyuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam, Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Savadutam, Parijana Saitas, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam, Sagana Lalita, Shri Vishtam Cham Vitam Cham. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namam Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine, Namaste Sarasvati Deve, Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvisesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Dejatarine, Mukam Karoti Vachalam, Pangum Langayate Girim, Yakripata Maham Vande Sagum. Tinatarinam. So Kadav Goswami said, after renouncing his father's home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of his great Maitreya Rishi. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. So much there. There's so many places I want to go, and I know if I start a story, that story will lead me to another story that will lead me to another story, and I can speak about stories all the time. In fact, I was thinking like, I just want to go and speak from the Mahabharata. Prabhupada didn't give us the Mahabharata per se. At the same time, in many of his purports and throughout his literature, he gives us a lot of what is important for us to know of the story of the Pandava and the story of Maharaj Bharat and the descendant and all the genealogy of King Parikshit. And I used to really not be so interested, but now I'm so fascinated by the genealogy of King Parikshit and all the Pandava and all those personalities over the last 35 years. They have been my companions. They have been, like we always want to speak about other people, isn't it? Everything, the newspaper is all about news, about political person, about rock star, movie star, and books are about people we don't know, but we're fascinated by reading books, stories, novels, and you name it. We love hearing about other people. We love speaking about other people. However, as long as those time of talk, Gramya Katha, it's called Gramya Katha, that are staying within the realm of material communication and material people with material activities that have a beginning and an end, then all that knowledge is kind of a pilgrimage for crow. Dear Govinda was quoting that verse from the beginning of the Bhagavatam. It's a pilgrimage for crow. Like crows, they like to go where there is garbage and reject from society. So it's like a reject from like spiritual society. A pure devotee has no interest to know about movie star or a president or anything like that, because the pure devotees see that all those people, they are conditioned soul. They are all suffering in the material world with no exception. No exception. Every soul within this realm of the material world, which is called Durga, which is a prison house for reforming our consciousness, will experience a lot of misery. So even the most rich person we want to read about, who's the richest person in the world? Who knows that?
Jeff Bezos.
Jeff
Or maybe
Bezos.
Elon Musk now.
Huh?
Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, I have no idea. But I know that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are experiencing misery. If it's not misery from their mind, which I doubt they don't have misery from their mind, it's a misery from their body. Even so, they have millions and trillions of dollars, they still will experience disease and pain in the body, and nobody is going to do anything about it. And even if they have millions and trillions of dollars, they are going to experience the mind saying, I want something I cannot have. I want something that even money cannot buy. Maybe it's a good relationship with their son or their daughter or their wife or a colleague. Even with that fortune, they are suffering because they want something that they cannot have. And maybe they are suffering because they don't like the weather, because whatever material energy, like bodhika, like all the sufferings that come for just the material energy. Maybe they are suffering from someone else that doesn't agree with them, because when you have so much power, you think like everybody should follow you, and maybe there is someone who doesn't agree with them. They are suffering. Even so, those two are competing to be the wealthiest people in the world. I know that for sure. How can I know that they are suffering? How can I look at anybody and say, because they are conditioned soul, because by design, they are eternal servant of Krishna. By design, their nature at the core is spiritual. So by design, we are not going to be satisfied with anything that's temporary, because by design, we are eternal. By design, we are not going to be satisfied by anything that's born of ignorance, any habits, any ways that we try to escape this reality of this material world with this suffering. Like we are not going, because our nature is cheat. It's like we are full of knowledge of our position, and knowledge of the purpose of human life, and knowledge of what we are supposed to do. By design, like we are built like that. There is nothing we can do about it. And that's why I know that they're also built like that. They are all servants of Krishna, who don't know that they're servants of Krishna, who will try to milk happiness, milk satisfaction from a place where there is no milk, from a place there is no satisfaction. And by design also, they are full of bliss. And because they are trying to find bliss within the realm of the senses, all the senses and the mind, and with the contact of the sense object, then they are suffering, and we are suffering, and all conditioned souls are suffering. Sufferings come and go. Matras pasas to konteya shitosnas kadukada. Agama payano nityam tam titikshas bharata. So Lord Shri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he said, happiness and distress, they just come. As material happiness and distress, they just come in due course. Like winter and summer season, they do just come. We have nothing to do for them to come. We just wait. I'm going to feel happy. All of a sudden, I feel happy. And usually we try to find a cause and effect. I feel happy because, or I feel sad because. But in reality, they come and go. Like there is no cause for winter to come. It's just come. Why? Why is it cold now? Of course, the scientists will find so many reasons why. But the ultimate cause, one is nature is a cause, and it's the cause and effect. And we are the source of our suffering. We could, like in Florida, it's interesting because it's reversed than most of the world. Wherever I lived before, winter is the hated season because it's so cold, it's wet, and it's so difficult. Every time I call my mom, she's in France, and she complains about the cold or the humidity or whatever, because it's cold. And then summer is happiness. Everybody knows, like the season for happiness is summer. And in Florida, it's opposite. People are so happy. Oh, I love this weather. Every time I hear that in the winter, you do? Because you're supposed to love summer. You're not supposed to love winter. And then in the summer, everybody complains. It's buggy and it's humid and it's like stuffy and all that. So everybody complaining in summer. So we can see from that it's relative. It's relative. It's completely relative. We are in that world of duality, and we really try to attach happiness and distress to some cause and effect. And if we look at our lives, in fact, we can find that there is moments that we feel so good about ourselves, and there is no causeless happiness. And we experience a lot more of causeless distress. And if we were to be introspective, like the sages, they're introspective, they can see this causeless happiness and this causeless distress is just the contact of the senses with the sense object. By contemplating the object of the senses, one develop attraction for them. And then when we have that attraction, from that attraction, because we cannot have what we want most of the time, then we develop frustration. And from that frustration, anger comes, and from anger, madness, and from the madness, illusion. So we dive deeper into illusion and ignorance. So I have diverted from Vidura's question. I'm going to bring back to the class. So here, the end of the second canto is Shonaka Rishi, the spokesperson of the sages of Naimisharanya, was remembering that maybe 10 hours ago or so, something like that, Sutta Goswami was speaking about Vidura when he preached to his brother Dhritarashtra to quit home. It's the 13th chapter of Canto 1. So Vidura, it said, but it's not really explained. It says that he came back. He came back to the kingdom of the Pandava, to the house of the Pandava, and he came back specifically with that goal in mind to save his, greedy, blind brothers from the cycle of birth and death. And it's a beautiful chapter where he really shows his brother how much is in illusion of comfort, how much is in illusion of family tie happiness. That in fact, no, he lived like a dog. He lived at the expense of people that he tortured all their life, even when they were children. How pathetic his situation is, and how pathetic our situation is. And Vidura he takes so much time showing to Dhritarashtra, look at your situation, look deeply. You just, in ignorance, you're in illusion, you have no sense of what you're doing, you're getting old, you your teeth are not good anymore, your body is not good anymore, you're going to die. You're dying, you're old. Get up and wake up to your real consciousness. You're pathetic. So we are in that thing, in this situation, we are going to die. And whatever is happening in this life is insignificant. That's what he said here. It's insignificant. Even the suffering is for a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affair is insignificant. So that's what we want to aspire for. And more than that, we want to aspire for Vidura's consciousness that, in fact, when disturbance comes, they are an opportunity. They are an opportunity to go deeper into our spiritual life, to go deeper into our surrender to Krishna, and make that surrender be the foundation for our decision making. Instead of making our decision based on happiness and distress, if I do that, I will feel happy. If I do this, I shouldn't because I will feel unhappy. And we avoid pain and we try to go like the fly when there is a fire, they go to the fire and get burned. So we tend to go to what we imagine is going to give us happiness. And Prahlad Maharaj said, the more we make plans for happiness, the more we are going to suffer. So the more we are like the fly, trying to make decisions for our life based on the opportunity or the illusion of the opportunity for happiness, we are going to only create more suffering. However, there is a part of us who say, well, but if I let go of that possible happiness, I'm going to suffer, isn't it? And that's why we because of that belief system we have about what suffering is and how suffering is going to come, then we miss out on the opportunity of disturbances in our life to bring us closer to Krishna. So here we hear Sukadev Goswami, like Sutta Goswami, throughout the Bhagavatam, Sutta Goswami, he responds to Shonakya Rishi, and usually he responds by quoting Sukadev Goswami, who is the first speaker of the Bhagavatam. And if you notice, Sukadev Goswami is speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, and who is a descendant of the Pandavas. So it's our family history. So Vidura is very significant because when he preached to his brothers, the sages, they heard that. And they heard that he preached because he was just coming from pilgrimage. And he was just on pilgrimage. So they remember that he said, okay, he had a conversation with that sage Maitreya Rishi. We didn't hear about that conversation. What we heard is a conversation between Vidura and Dhritarashtra, and that was so inspiring. We want to know what was said between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. That's what they want to know. And so the whole chapter is questioned by Vidura. I can go so many places. It's really the choice is abundance. Really, like in presenting Bhagavatam, it seems that we could speak like Sukadev Goswami, day and night, all day and night, and not stop one moment. Always know something else. Like right now, I have so many things I want to share and so many directions in my mind. And I know the time is limited. And if we could stay here 24 hours, then I will not feel limited. I will go into the Mahabharata and why we speak about Vidura and who Vidura is. And then I will speak about Achintya Veda Veda Tattva that Srila Prabhupada is quoting at the beginning of the purport. And then I will speak about, okay, like the devotee, what the misery of the devotee and how the devotee take it. I will speak about the external reason why Vidura went on pilgrimage and the internal reason why he went on pilgrimage. So much. And then we could really see it all there. We don't need to have other topic of discussions, really, than to speak about the Lord and the Lord's devotees and the Lord's teaching and his pure devotees. So much to say.
Prabhupada would sometimes describe how his spiritual master Bhaktisiddhanta spoke every day for 3 months just on the first verse of Bhagavatam, 111. And Prabhupada said, we can do that with every verse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see, like there's here is like 2 verses and I'm feeling perplexed. Where do I go? And any desire in the audience?
Because you said that if there was time, that's one thing that you mentioned, like Jeff Bezos, unless they can't buy more time.
Yeah.
I want more time.
Yeah, so the time is conspicuous by its absence in the spiritual world. So in fact, we do have time. Time is there to activate the 3 modes of material nature and crushing us, because of time, we have an opportunity to realize our fragile constitution. Because of time that's moving, constantly moving the activities of the living entities, the conditioned soul. Because of time, then we have an opportunity to realize how feeble we are. And Nandini, you raised your hand?
Yes, you asked for desires.
Yes.
I desire to hear about Vidura and his birth and his internal and external reasons for leaving and returning.
Okay. Okay. That's your desire. So I'm going to follow your hint because that's what I wanted to speak about. But the reason I wasn't speaking about it is because it's going to be described in the rest of this chapter, really. So I'm going to check the time. Okay, so Vidura, we are going to hear about Vidura. So yeah, question by Vidura. So let's hear first Maharaj Parikshit. So Maharaj Parikshit is the king that is the trigger. I was looking for another word, but for the Bhagavatam to be spoken, like the catalyst. That's what I was looking for. Catalyst, like we see in the Bhagavad Gita, the catalyst for the Bhagavad Gita to be spoken again by the Lord. Of course, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are eternal knowledge. It's not like they have a beginning and an end because they are spiritual, so they are eternal knowledge. However, there is a catalyst. There was a catalyst for the Bhagavad Gita to be spoken again. It was first spoken to Vishvashvama, the sun god, and then given to King Ikshvaku, king of the world, really of the earth. And then 5,000 years ago, the catalyst for the Bhagavad Gita to be spoken again is a situation on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna losing his composure and not knowing what is duty. So the catalyst for the Bhagavatam to be spoken 5,000 years ago, and we understand again the knowledge in Bhagavatam is eternal, is that conversation between, like Maharaj Parikshit is about to die, and because he had been cursed, see story into story, I want to go to the curse now of Maharaj Parikshit. It's so hard to really pack everything. So Maharaj Parikshit, he was killed by a Brahman boy to die by a snake bite in 7 days. So again, in the same situation than Vidura, in a sense, there was disturbance, pretty heavy disturbance for most human beings to hear you're going to die in 7 days. It's panic attack. Oh my God, that's the worst thing that could happen. I didn't do that. I didn't do this. What about the people are insulted? Oh, so many things. And because the saintly person is death as an opportunity. You see all disturbance, including hearing that I'm going to die in 7 days. What a boon. What a boon to know that. Because then we don't, material maintenance doesn't matter. Material relationship, they don't matter. nothing really matter. Even eating and sleeping doesn't matter. What does matter is that I'm going to prepare for this. So Maharaj Parikshit, as a saintly king, he left his kingdom, he left all his opulence. So same situation than Vidura in this verse. He said he left everything, and he went on the shore of the Yamuna River to meditate on Lord Shri Krishna. And then all the sages gathered around him, because on this time, like the emperors of the world leaving the body is a great event. That's an event we don't want to miss. Most people, they don't want to miss a ghetto game, but at that time, what they didn't want to miss is a great sage, saintly king, leaving his body. It was like the greatest event of the world. So all those sages from all over the world, they gathered thousands, maybe millions, I don't know. And then they were waiting for the speaker to come, and then Sukadev Goswami came. And then the Maharaj Parikshit at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, he asked, what is the duty? And in fact, it's the beginning of the second canto. What is the duty of one who is about to die? So Maharaj Parikshit, who is he and who is Vidura? Maharaj Parikshit is the grandson of Arjuna, who receives the Bhagavad Gita. And is son of Uttara and is a son of Abhimanyu and Uttara. And Abhimanyu is a son of Arjuna and Subhadra. So in a sense, Maharaj Parikshit's grand-uncle is Sri Krishna. So it's how related he is. So he's related with the Yadu dynasty through Subhadra, and he's related to the Kuru dynasty from King Kuru, to Arjuna and Abhimanyu, like that. And okay, so I'm going to go back to quite some back. After Kuru, there was a king named King Shantanu. And it's so important to understand that, because King Shantanu is a very important personality. Anyway, King Shantanu, he fell in love with the personification of the Ganges River. Ganges River. And he fell in love with her, and he wanted to marry her and have children with her. And she said, oh, if you want to marry me, you have to know, you have to accept to never ask me a question. Never ask me a question. You have to accept. Whatever I do, you just accept it. And imagine. And in fact, that's how we should be with each other. Letting go of emotional attachment to expectation of anything, isn't it? So he said, okay. He was so in love. He said, I want you, no matter what, I want you. And then she became pregnant, and she had her first son. And after she had her first son, she took the son and she put it in Ganges River and drowned the child. And Maharaj Shantanu was broken-hearted, like for a king. She's killing my son. And of course, there's a story behind it. It's a Vasus, and they had to be killed, whatever. But we don't want to go to another story. See, that's what's happened. There is a story, and then I want to tell the story about who are those children and why she's drowning them. But we are not going to be there. So she did that 7 times. Does that remind you of anything? Anyway, she did that 7 times, and then the 8th time, when she was about to do that, King Shantanu, he couldn't anymore. He couldn't keep his vow. He said, why are you doing that? And she said, well, you were supposed to not ask me a question. And then she said, okay, I'm leaving. And she left the son. And with that son, Bhishmadev. That's Bhishmadev, with the son of Maharaj Shantanu and the Ganges River. This is Bhishmadev. And then Maharaj Shantanu, he grieved. He had no more wife, And then he raised his son alone as a single dad. I think he did very well because he had a lot of abundance and next servant and everything. I think he did very well. Anyway, and then one day he was in the forest, he was hunting in the forest, and he saw a beautiful woman, Satyavati. And Satyavati, she has a very, very important role in the whole Mahabharata. There's many women who have like crucial role. In fact, reading the Mahabharata, it's in everything kind of revolves around the strength of the woman to manifest all those dynasties. So Satyavati, she's an interesting personality. There was our story about her too. But anyway, she was found by a fisherman inside the belly of a fish. And because she was found in the belly of a fish when she was born, she had a very fishy smell. Satyavati was extraordinarily beautiful, and she had a fishy smell because she was born out of the belly of a fish. I'm going to pause. I know it's weird. There's not such a thing as people being born of the belly of a fish. But in order to really dive into Krishna's pastime, we need to step out of the 9 dots, okay? The 9 dots of like everybody's born of a mother and a father. And if it's a dog, mother and father, you become a dog. And if it's a human, father and mother, you become a human. We need to step out of that and just be in a place of open-mindedness.
Satyavati. For the ride.
Be around for the ride. So Satyavati, in her youth, she was very beautiful. And in her youth, what she was doing, she was from the river. And what she was doing is that she was helping her father. So she was having a boat and she was doing a ride across the river for the pilgrim or everybody was passing by. And one day, Parashar Muni, which we could say so much about who he is and where I come from, but we are not going to do that. Parashar Muni was passing by and he fell in love with Satyavati, and he said, he's a Muni, and he said, I'm supposed to copulate with you. And Satyavati said, no, I'm virgin and I'm not going to do that. But Parashar Muni, he promised her first, you're going to be virgin, and also for your act of sacrifice, I'm going to give you a boon. I'm going to take away your smell. And in fact, he replaced that smell by a irresistible fragrance of Satyavati. So that day, and so they copulate, and then there was a son coming out of that. What's the name of the son? Yasadev. So Yasadev was born of the union of Satyavati. It's important to remember that. Satyavati and Parashar Muni. So one day, Shantanu, after he finished grieving, his son is an adult already. He was in the forest hunting, and he became attracted by so amazing fragrance. And then he found Satyavati so beautiful. He completely felt mad in love with Satyavati. And so Satyavati was like, okay, well, go and ask my dad. And the dad, remember, is a Shudra, is just like a fisherman. He deals with fish, he kills fish for a living. And so the Maharaj Santanu is that emperor of the universe, descendant of the Kuru dynasty. He went to see the fisherman, how, like embarrassing, must be like humiliating in some ways. But because he was so in love, that wasn't a barrier. He went to ask the fisherman for the hand of Satyavati. And the fisherman said, no, I'm not going to give you my daughter, which is really amazing. He's a Shudra, he doesn't have money as a fisherman. He can have his daughter as a queen empress of the whole earth. How strange that he will say no. And so how it goes. Yeah, so Maharaj Shantanu said, why? He said, because you have another son. And then when the son that you will have with Satyavati grow up, they are not going to be the emperor. And so Maharaj Shantanu,
Very ambitious.
yeah, he was very ambitious, that fisherman. And so Maharaj Shantanu, he went home very, very morose, so morose. He had no appetite and he was depressed. He couldn't have the object of his senses. He couldn't have Satyavati, and he was so depressed. And Bhishmadev is beautiful, righteous, higher of the throne. He saw his father like that. And we can imagine there was such a bonding between the two of them because there was no mother involved. And Bhishmadev saw his father so sad, and he decided, I need to figure out what's happening. And somehow he did. And so he went to see the fisherman and he said, what's up? Why are you not giving your daughter to the emperor? You're just a fisherman, come on. And then the fisherman explained like, no, because you're going to, marry and have children. And your children are going, first he said, you're going to be the king. And he said, no, I'm going to renounce the kingdom. I'm not going to be the king. The son of my father and Satyavati are going to be the king. And then, but it was not enough for the fisherman. He said, well, maybe you will not be the king, but then because you're the elder one, maybe your children will claim the kingdom, because you will have children before my grandchildren have children, because you're so older. So they will be the righteous heir to the kingdom. And then Bhishmadev, he made a vow, I will never marry. Remember that vow. It's really, really important. And it's really important to understand who Bhishmadev is. He's such an amazing, righteous, dutiful personality. And so Bhishmadev. So, okay, so Satyavati and Maharaj Shantanu, they copulate and they have children. I remember the name of the older son. And the older son left. When he became of age, he left. And then the second son is Vichitravirya. And Vichitravirya was known as a very, very weak personality, like really weak, overly passive. And so no princess wanted to marry him. Like no one wanted to marry him. Even so he was a prince, there was nobody, no woman wanted him as a husband because his character was not attractive. He was not like chivalrous and strong. And so, so Bhishmadev was part of the kingdom still. He wasn't the king, but he was part of the kingdom. He decided to take care of his brother. And he went and he kidnapped 3 princesses that were very qualified, very beautiful and very qualified. Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. So he went and he kidnapped them and he brought them back home. At the time, he was part of the way kings and prince and princess, like Krishna also kidnapped Rukmini. So it was, again, we want to be outside of the box of our very so good Kali Yoga society that's so well organized and so much clean and with no anyway, you know what I mean,
It's sarcasm.
It's some sarcasm in the middle of the class. But anyway, so thank you, Nandini. I can speak forever. So Maharaj Shantanu and Satyavati, they had Vichitravirya, and Bhishmadev went to kidnap those 3 princesses for Vichitravirya to have children, because it was the responsibility to make sure that the line of the Kuru dynasty continued. So Bhishmadev, he went to get them and he brought them back. And then, out of the 3, only 2 of them accepted to be married to Vichitravirya. And one of them said, no, I don't want him. You kidnapped me. You are going to marry me. But that's another story. We are not going to speak about that. But she really wanted Bhishmadev. You kidnapped me. You're the one I want. I'm not going to marry your brother. And so it's a story, but it's an important story because Parashar Muni was his guru, and he told him to marry Amba. And he said no. So he kept his vow against his gurus. So that, that's a curse to go against the Guru's instruction. So we want to keep that in mind for the rest of the story, but we are not going to that part anyway. But then Vichitravirya, he copulated with his wife, nothing came out of that. Nothing, because he was impotent. He was weak and impotent. He didn't have even the strength to beget progeny in either Ambika or Ambalika. So there was a crisis. There was a real crisis, and Bhishmadev, Satyavati, they were speaking about that crisis. There's a crisis happening here. There is no heirs. So Satyavati, she remembered, oh, I have another son. Remember? She had another son that she had when she was a teenager. And she said, I'm going to call upon my son, because my son, Vyasadeva, Srila Vyasadeva, I'm going to call upon my son. In this age, it was acceptable for the brother of the king to beget children in the king's wife for the sake of continuing the dynasty. So she called on Vyasadeva. And so Vyasadeva came, and he was supposed to do his job with 2 queens. And so he started with Ambika. She was the older one, Ambika. And Vyasadeva is a supreme personality of Godhead. And he was known as very, very ugly. He was just very ugly. And so Ambika, she closed her eyes and she was so disgusted. She had no spiritual eyes to see this is the incarnation, the literary incarnation of God. How fortunate I am to get a child from there. She didn't have that kind of understanding. And so she was repulsed, and she closed her eyes when she copulated. And then Ambalika, she had that knowledge. She understood that this is a great sage, a great personality, a very advanced devotee of the Lord. And at the same time, she kind of like, oh yeah, it's really not very attractive to look at. And so Ambika, she gave birth to Dhritarashtra with, like the person to whom the Bhagavad Gita is retold by Sanjaya. And Dhritarashtra was born blind, and not only blind physically, but also spiritually blind, because at the time of conception, the consciousness of the parents really do affect the progeny. And that's why there is a lot of sacrifice in the Veda to beget progenies that are going to be conducive to understand the purpose of human life and to fulfill the purpose of human life. So there is mantras, there is ways that Srila Prabhupada guides us to have the right consciousness while begetting children. So because Ambika, when she was impregnated by Vyasadeva, her consciousness was disgust and blindness, then she gave birth to Dhritarashtra. And then Ambalika, she had spiritual, like she really gave herself to Vyasadeva, but still, she looked at Vyasadeva, ooh, that was something. And then said, because of that, Pandu, the second son of Vichitravirya, was born white. He was white. He had a very white complexion. And then in the kingdom, there was a maid servant, and that maid servant name is Sudri. Sudri, she was a maid servant, Sudrani. And Sudri, she was completely enamored with Vyasadeva. She had the vision, she was a Sudrani. And again, we see how spiritual life, Bhakti Yoga, is not limited by our position in society, our work, our caste, or anything like that. And so Sudri, she was a maid servant. She was completely in love with Vyasadeva, and she begged him, please, beget children in my womb. I want to have a child with you. So really of the three, she's the one who was like even the most surrender, and she was eager. She didn't have to, like the other one, they have to because it was their responsibility as queen to beget an heir to the throne, but Shudri didn't need to. And so she begged. And then from the union of Shudri and Vyasadeva was born Vidura.
Vidura. Wow.
So Vidura naturally was a very saintly person. He was very, very, very saintly. From birth, from before his birth, he was very, very cognizant of the purpose of the goal of life, of serving to Krishna, service to Krishna. And Vidura was accepted by King Dhritarashtra and Pandu as their brother. He was accepted as the son of Vichintravirya. They were all accepted. In fact, when we look at the genealogy, even so the sperm didn't come from Vichintravirya, they are accepted as Vichintravirya's sons, all three of them. And all three of them were accepted as kings. And of course, the emperor was supposed to be Dhritarashtra, but because he was blind, he wasn't qualified because he didn't have the physical strength to protect the kingdom. So Pandu is the one who inherited the kingdom, and that's why the Pandava, because he had children first. And the Pandava were natural heir of the kingdom because they were the first grandsons of Vichintravirya to be born. The way they were born is another story for another time. All those 5 sons of Pandu.
And how they're related to Vishnudev.
How they are, the Pandavas, they are relative to Bhishmadev, to Satyavati. Yeah, his grandfather is a great grandfather to Satyavati, exactly. And Bhishmadev is a grandsire, and he protected the Pandava. And so here in this verse, we understand that Shukadev Goswami is speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, and that's why he said, Lord Krishna acted as your minister, because he's speaking to one of the higher, like a descendant of the Pandava. In fact, he is a Kuru, he is from the Kuru dynasty, who was, like before Vichintravirya, before Maharaj Shantanu. And he said, yeah, the Lord was visiting your father and your uncles and the Pandavas, your uncles and father house all the time. And in a purport, Srila Prabhupada said that something that everything connected with Krishna is non-different than Krishna. Krishna's land, Krishna's paraphernalia. That's why when we hold the Bhagavatam, we don't hold the book, we hold Krishna. And that's why we want to be very, 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 very reverential towards the Bhagavad Gita, towards the Bhagavatam. If you can see, we don't put those books on the floor. We don't bring them to the bathroom. We really treat all Krishna's paraphernalia are non-different than Krishna. Really, all Krishna's paraphernalia are considered like Krishna's first expansion, which is Balaram, which expanded into Shankarshan. So all the Krishna's expansion. However, the Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. And Krishna's land, Vrindavan, is Krishna himself. And here, Sukadev Goswami said, the house of the Pandava, where Krishna was feeling like it's my own house, is also Krishna himself. And then the doctrine of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva is inconceivable oneness and difference. So Vrindavan, or the house of the Pandava, or the Srimad Bhagavatam, is Krishna himself. That's a oneness. And then different than Krishna in the sense that there is also Krishna separated from that, who have his pastime in Vrindavan, who is entering the palace of the Pandavas. And then also we are Krishna because we are part and parcel of Krishna. But we are not Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. We are not the omnipotent personality. We are not the omniscient personality. I'm sure it's like a surprise for all of us. Wow, I'm not the omnipotent. I'm not the supreme personality of Godhead. So that's what Srila Prabhupada means. And understanding that we understand how to spiritualize every aspect of our lives, to make our home a temple. We have Krishna visit, Lord Chaitanya is here present. Also, the pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada is here on the altar, is here. So if we understand that, then when we come to the temple, when we come to our temple room in our home, we understand this temple room is not different than Krishna. The floor of this temple room is considered Balaram too. And that's why we put a cushion between our bottom and the floor to not be sitting right on Krishna. And by developing that consciousness, then we spiritualize our life, because there is many rule and regulation in Bhakti Yoga. Some people say, oh, so many rules, so many regulation. And the essence of all rule and regulation is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And how are we going to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna if we live our life exactly the way we used to live it? If we have the same relationship with our car, with our living room, with our kitchen, with the ingredient in our kitchen, if we do the same thing that we always do, we are going to create the same consciousness. So those rules and regulation around veneration of the books, veneration of the place, because they are non-different than Krishna, all them, as we add them to our life, each time we have an opportunity to remember Krishna. And that's why that quintessential, like essence to always remember Krishna, that doesn't mean that, oh, I can skip all the other rules and go there. No, that's the opposite. Because of the other rules, then I come to always remember Krishna. Because I know in my house, all that is Krishna. Everything in the fridge is Krishna's bhoga, and everything is made to be offered to Krishna. My house is Krishna's temple. And so because I'm going to clean my house because it's Krishna's temple. And in every moment, everything we do, moment to moment, from the moment we get up in the morning to the time we go to sleep at night, we can be responsible to arrange our life, to put those rules and regulations, to put those things that look like, how's it called? Rituals? They look like rituals. We want to integrate them, not to be attached to the rituals, but to embrace those rituals as remembrance of Krishna, helping us along the way, because we are conditioned. We are conditioned. And as long as we are conditioned, and as long if we keep everything the same way, according to our conditioning, progress is going to be difficult to remember Krishna always and to serve Krishna always. So there's so much more to Viduras, but right now we understand he's the uncle of the Pandava and the great-great-uncle of Maharaj Parikshit. And he's very special because from the time of his birth, he was born of a very devotee of Lord Krishna and Vyasadeva. And throughout the life of the Pandava, he knew who they were, and he protected them again and again because of Vidura. In fact, when Vidura was kicked out of the house of Dhritarashtra, and that's why the external reason why Vidura left home to go in pilgrimage, it's because Duryodhana insulted him. And he told him, you are an imposter. We treated you like a king, and our uncle like at the same level than Pandu and Dhritarashtra, but you're not. And then you're a spy. You're a spy in the house of the people who give you food. What kind of degraded position it is? So Duryodhana insulted Vidura in that way, like really heavily, because Vidura, he did spy, in fact. He's the one who prevented the Pandavas from being killed in a fire, from being poisoned, from being eaten by the cannibal. Like everything Vidura was hearing from Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, and then he will warn the Pandavas. So throughout their childhood, throughout the time in exile also, Vidura was kind of protector of the Pandava. And so That's why it was so important in the kingdom. And then when the Kus, Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, and like all the sons of Dhritarashtra were antagonizing the Pandava to have the battlefield of Kurukshetra, to really fight. They wanted that. They initiated that fight, not the Pandava. When they initiated that fight, Vidura, he went to Dhritarashtra and said, don't do that. They are on the side of Krishna. You're going to be completely smashed to the ground. Don't do that. Don't make peace. Give them some kingdom. Give them what they are supposed to get. Don't do that. And Duryodhana, when he heard that, that's when he insulted Vidura. And that's the external reason for Vidura quitting home and leaving home. And the internal reason that we can see for Vidura is because he wanted to hear from Maitreya Rishi. And we are going to hear like the third canto and the fourth canto also. It's all about the dialogue between Maitreya and Vidura. That's how important it is that Vidura, his question leads to this question lead to this is disturbing. That's okay. But this question of Vidura leads to two cantos, like Maharaj Parikshit heard from Sukadeva Goswami from that conversation, and two cantos is a full 24 hours about that, about that, a full 24 hours. Not quite exactly. Wait, so yeah, about that, like taking, because it's 7 days, 12 canto. So it's about 2 day and night. And so Vidura is a great personality from the beginning of his life, from the beginning of the Pandava's life. And of course, so much of Vidura's history is connected with Maharaj Parikshit's history. And thus, when Vidura left, he left to hear from Maitreya. And his internal reason is it's a boon for a devotee. When there's a verse I wanted to share with you. Taten kampam susu samikshamano bujana evatma kritam vipakam vidvagvapu bir vidadam namaste chiveta yo mukti padi saya. My dear Lord, this is Lord Brahma speaking to Sri Krishna in Vrindavan after he made a big boo-boo. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for your causeless mercy upon him. So earnestly wait, patiently, earnestly, like earnestly means like with all my heart, like completely wait for your causeless mercy upon him. All the while, patiently suffering the reaction of his past misdeeds. So when suffering comes to our lives, if we are capable to be earnest in waiting for the Lord and patiently go through whatever suffering is happening to us due to our past misdeed, Krishna is not the source of our suffering. We are. So patiently, earnestly, like patiently suffering the reaction of his past deeds. So, like Vidura, he was kicked out and he said, okay, bye. It was probably painful to hear Duryodhana speaking like that and Dhritarashtra's brother. Still, he saw the opportunity here. And the reaction of his son, and offering you all respectful obeisances. When we suffer, it's a time to offer with full earnestly and patiently, like full obeisances to the Lord. With his heart, words, and body is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So Vidura, and Srila Prabhupada is an example of that. Queen Kunti, she said, let those calamity come again and again, because when those calamity comes, we have an opportunity to remember you again and again. And I know I have seen that in my own life, and I'm coming to a place where I really, really do get Queen Kunti and how it is the most valuable thing that can happen to us is to be in connection with Krishna, remember Krishna, be with Krishna. And if our suffering led us there, let the suffering come, because there is no greatest joy to our soul and to our being than to be in connection with Krishna, to be in connection with Srila Prabhupada, for Vidura to hear from Maitreya Rishi. Maitreya Rishi was right there when Krishna was speaking to Uddhava, just before closing his pastime, just before leaving this planet. So it's like, yeah, I want to hear from Maitreya Rishi. He was right there just before the Lord left. So I'm going to stop here. Sukadev Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of his grace Maitreya Rishi. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it was his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. He didn't care for Duryodhana. Duryodhana is like he's so materialistic. He thinks he can control everything. He thinks he can decide what kingdom he has. He thinks he can decide also he wanted to marry a queen that he didn't get. But it's just an illusion, so Krishna doesn't care. Hare Krishna, thank you for listening. And Anandidi, thank you for prompting me. That's exactly what I wanted to speak about. And is there any comment, question, sharing, realization?
I'll just say
Yeah.
that you mentioned like you maybe have inspiration to speak about Mahabharat, maybe more than in the class, maybe you'll. I was just saying, I was going to say that I was familiar with the story Mahabharat, the story from Mahabharat you're telling, because I watched the TV show, a little bit like the TV show from India. And then like, I know Devin's listened to like Mahabharat podcast. So if you don't speak more often on the Mahabharat, then we're going to go to unauthorized sources. So it gives you encouragement to give, presentations on the Mahabharat, so we don't go, because I'm thinking, I want to go watch that TV show.
Yeah. So the Mahabharata is for an intelligent woman and man. That's what Prabhupada says. But yeah, Mahabharata is fascinating. Why? Because we want to hear about intrigues. We want to hear about romance. We want to hear about war. We want to hear about those people and what's happening in their lives. And that's why there is so many movies and Hollywood and Bollywood and books, and because we want to hear, we want to hear the Jews. So by reading the Mahabharata, we get that. It's so epic. It's so epic. It's one story upon another story upon another story, and it's so fascinating. And hearing Mahabharata is going to purify our heart, and even more purifying to our heart, because directly glorifying Krishna is to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Vyasadeva, he had compiled the Mahabharata, and it was all there, the story of Krishna. And of course, at the end of the Mahabharata, we have the Bhagavad Gita, which is the most important part of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata, in fact, is a showcases for the Bhagavad Gita. That's what it is. It's setting the scene, like for a long epic story, to set the scene for us to get the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. So we are enjoined by Vyasadeva. Go directly to the Bhagavad Gita, go directly, because you can get lost in the Mahabharata. So Vyasadeva, he did compile the Mahabharata, he gave it to us, and he was not satisfied. Himself, the author of it, he said, I'm not satisfied. He was so despondent in his heart. There's something missing. I didn't give really what is going to save the people of Kali Yuga. Because people of Kali Yuga, they have short memory. They are always curling around nothing. Their mind is absorbed in drama all the time, in small drama, maybe because they don't have what they want, or maybe they have what they want, but it's not the way they want, whatever. And he said, I didn't give them. And he was so despondent. I didn't do my service. He was like crushed. I didn't do my service properly. I know there's something missing. And just at that time, his spiritual master always come when we have questions. Always come when we are, like humbly coming to a place of seeing our shortcoming. Our shortcomings are not the problems, it's what we do with them. But if we humbly look at our shortcoming, look at our suffering, look at our thing, then the spiritual master just comes. So Narada Muni just came at that moment when Vyasadeva was speaking like that. And he said, yes, you're right. You should be ashamed of yourself. No, he didn't say that. But he said, yes, you're right. You didn't do what is going to be the most helpful for the people of Kali Yuga. You didn't glorify the personality of God directly. Because, like even now, I was glorifying the devotee of the Lord because I get guidance from Srila Prabhupada about the Mahabharata. But if we just read the Mahabharata and we don't have between the line of what's happening, like for example in Shudri, when she wanted to be with, if it's just about the love story about Shudri with Vyasadeva, we lose the point. We lose Krishna altogether. And in the Mahabharata, we can lose touch of Krishna and just get absorbed in the story without understanding the behind the scene of that it is a glorification of Krishna, but it's not directly there. And it is directly there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So after hearing from Narada Muni, Vyasadeva went into meditation and he understood. And then he, after attending also the gathering and Nagmeshwaranya hearing from Sutta Goswamis, and he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the one who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam to his son, Sukadeva Goswami. So there's so many stories there too.
Just one more thing, because Mahabharata had a showcase to present Bhagavad Gita, and also it's a context to present Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, in a sense, the stories. I know for me, when I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, it was hard for me to get into it until I got to the part where it's like the Mahabharata, Vidura, and these kind of. Then it's like get into the story, and then I was like, okay, now I'm in, and so like. So it's a way to it's a way.
Yeah. So at least the beginning of the Bhagavatam, because there is many pastime in the Bhagavatam that have nothing to do with the Mahabharata. However, the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the scene of the Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit asking a question to Sukadeva Goswami is definitely also showcased and coming within the Mahabharata, and there is also overlaps. The story of Bhishmadev, the story of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the story of Queen Kunti, all that is overlap between the Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata. And at the same time, within the Bhagavatam, the stories that are told by Sukadeva Goswami and the stories that are told within the story, they are outside of them, like one that's very famous is Prahlad Maharaj is not in the Mahabharata, for example. And there is stories from different kalpas, from different millennium, from different ages that are not part of the Mahabharata. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, Bhakta Keith. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Could you speak a little bit about when Vidura, when he speaks to Dhritarashtra before he goes off into the forest? You mentioned it a little bit.
This is his connection.
Except, I can speak. Well, I already spoke some. So Vidura was living in the kingdom with the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And then when the Kauravas were antagonistic towards the Pandavas, Vidura, the wise man, is always very, very wise. He's a very, very wise devotee of the Lord. He was really endeavoring to stop the war, to stop that fratricide war. No, we don't want the cousins to kill each other. We don't want all those people to be on the battlefield. And plus he was warning Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, you're not going to win that battle. You're not going to. And so that for that reason, that Duryodhana, he got really angry because Duryodhana really wanted that war. He wanted to crush for once and forever. He wanted to crush the Pandavas, and he so much wanted that fight to happen. And then he assaulted his uncle Vidura by reminding him of his birth, that he was not a real king really, because he was not born of a king woman or a Kshatriya woman. And also he treated him like he was a spy, because he was always protecting the Pandavas, and because also Duryodhana, see, the Pandavas, he didn't have enemies. The devotee of the Lord don't have any enemies. But when we are in a materialistic way of thinking, there is friends and enemies. And Duryodhana is like materialistic, example of like personified. And he was seeing in terms of friends and enemy. And so he was seeing the Pandava, who were the same family, and they were ruling the same kingdom together. However, he, from his consciousness and frame of mind, he was seeing them as enemy. And so he told Vidura, and you are spying, for the sake of the enemies, and like that. And so insulting Vidura, and that's why Vidura left, external reason. However, Vidura, as a devotee of the Lord do his duty. He takes responsibility to do what he's supposed to do. And at the same time, the devotee of the Lord is not going to endeavor for material thing. He's not going to endeavor even for doing his duty if it's happened that there is an opportunity to leave all that and just focus on Krishna and hear and chant. So Vidura took that as an opportunity to follow his heart, the heart of the devotee, which is yeah, that's great. I'm going to hear and chant and be happy like that. Does that respond to your question, Bhaktakis?
I was meaning after all the war, when he chastises Dhritarashtra. And I think your focus is probably better.
Okay, well, my focus is because we read that how long ago? Maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we read Dhritarashtra quit home.
Yeah.
So we read it in our Bhagavatam class, but maybe most of you don't remember, or most of you maybe were not here during Bhagavatam class when we read that chapter. So interestingly, Vidura was away during the war. He was away during the war. He was away when Krishna left his pastime, left the planet. So he missed all that. He missed Uttara being attacked by Ashvatam. He missed sons of the Pandava being beheaded. He missed all that. He left for years, for years he left. And so he wasn't there. And we are going to hear how Uddhava is going to tell him. He's going to tell him a lot about what's happened with the Kuru dynasty and the Yadu dynasty. Uddhava is going to share with him, kind of updating about what's the big things that have happened for the last few years that you were on pilgrimage. And so he's going to hear from Maitreya, and then that's when he will understand okay, I have one more thing to do. That's really important. When he understood that Dhritarashtra and Gandhari were living at the expense of the Pandava in the kingdom, he understood I have a responsibility to save my brother. And so that's why he stopped his pilgrimage after having the complete conversation with Maitreya. Then he went back to the kingdom and to the palace of the Pandavas. And when he arrived there, he went to Dhritarashtra, and he preached to Dhritarashtra about his pathetic situation, just be materially comfortable and living like a king at the expense of the Pandavas that he tortured all his life, and not really being conscious of the purpose of human life, and not being conscious of what is the duty of one who is about to die, and one who is, in a Varnashram Dharma, when someone become older, they leave home and comfort to go and meditate on the Lord. And so when he came back, he found his brother in this pathetic situation. He showed him like, here is what I see. It was a mirror. It was a mirror. Here is what I see you're doing. Here is how pathetic your situation is. Come on, wake up. And Dhritarashtra, he was somewhat of a devotee. And he heard the whole Bhagavad Gita, remember that. He heard the whole Bhagavad Gita. So he was somewhat of a devotee. And so Vidura's kind of awakened and rekindled that a spiritual desire in Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra understood. And then when he understood, he quit home and he went north to the Himalayan mountain. And Gandhari, his wife, was really devoted, an amazing woman, like another amazing woman in the Mahabharata and in the Bhagavatam. Queen Gandhari, she has so much power because of her austerity, her chastity, her loyalty to her husband. She developed so many powers, including, including a deep power in that chastity to Krishna. So Gandhari, she followed her husband too. She could have stayed in the palace comfortably because Vidura didn't say Gandhari should go. But she decided, no, it makes sense. And I want to support my husband in fulfilling the goal of human life and fulfilling Vidura's instruction. And so Gandhari and Vidura, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari and Vidura left home like that and went north to the Himalayan mountain to prepare for departure to the spiritual world. Hare Krishna, thank you for your question, Bhaktakis. Anything else? Thank you all. It was a pleasure for me. I get excited when telling stories. So it was a real pleasure for me. Thank you all for being here. Kantora Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Thank you.